Hi, I'm Natalie, owner of the Sewing Studio, and today I get to share something a little different with you. We're going to work with the IQ technology built into the Baby Lock embroidery machines, and I'm going to have you help me finish a mug rug that I've started. So here's the project that I've started. I have a 7-inch square and I've used some of the designs built into the Baby Lock machine to get started. I'll show you how to set all of that up and get to this point, and then we're going to add some background quilting around my design and then finish off the mug rug completely. So what we'll need to finish off what we've started is we'll need a little bit of thread. We like to use isocord thread. It works better in our machines and tends not to break or fray as easily. And then I have a couple of pieces of fabric up here that I'll use as my back for the mug rug to finish it off. We like to use paper tape for our embroidery when we're laying fabric over and there's a chance that our needle will catch on our pieces of fabric. So we use that to hold it down. I have a pair of scissors and the stylus that came with the Baby Lock Solaris Vision. It'll help us do some of the editing that we need. And one thing that Baby Lock's come out with recently is a bunch of new design suites, and they give us a lot more opportunity with background fills and giving us new designs. So I'll show you how to utilize that for the background fill we'll be doing today. So let's go over to the machine and get started. One of the things you'll notice is I have this box around the outside that is the shape of my mug rug, and then I've also imported a couple of designs from the machine itself to create the design that I'm using. So first off, we need to be able to create the square that's around the outside of the mug rug, and we're actually going to go over to IQ to start building that. So here on the bottom of our screen, you can see IQ Designer. And this is where we have the opportunity to design and create a lot of different things in the Baby Lock embroidery machines. The first thing that we want to do is make sure that we change our line type, and that's this button up here at the very top. Right now it's set to a satin stitch, and for the outline of our mug rug, we don't want a satin stitch but instead a triple stitch. You can use a single stitch as well, both will work. And then I just have a black color selected so that I can see the box really well. Now that we have the properties of our lines set up here at the top, then we want to come down to the circle and the square, which is the stamp tool, and we can grab our square. Once it's set, then what we want to do is always adjust the size first. If you don't adjust the size first, you won't be able to adjust it later. And so I just made mine a 7-inch square. Okay, and so then for this step, that's all we're going to do, and we're going to take and go ahead and move it out of IQ Designer over into embroidery by just hitting the next and the buttons down here in the bottom right. So I'm going to set it, and it's telling me here that we're moving out of IQ and over into embroidery. So there we have that outline of our mug rug, and we can go in and add the design that we want to for the middle. So I did exclusives. And here's our Dream Big. So we can set that. And I did take down the size of this just a little bit. So we go over to size, and I just went in as much as it would go, and then I moved it up just a little bit. When I'm done with the placement of that piece, then we can go back in and add the star. Under edit, I liked it flipped, so I rotated it. And then I moved it down. And then it was a little tight on my mug rug, so I also adjusted the size. So here you can see that we have that tack down stitch for our background fabric from the square that we created. And then I've gone in and actually let it embroidery the Dream Big and just the star from the second image. We'll go in now and add a background fill around our design. And once I have that completed, I'll go in and stitch the tail on the star and finish off our mug rug. So now that we have our design stitched, we're going to go in and actually use IQ Designer to build in a background quilting around the design so that it doesn't stitch through the design, which is one of my absolute favorite features about the Baby Lock Solaris Vision. So let me show you how to do that. So from the embroidery screen, we need to go back to the editing screen. And then if you don't have the edit menu expanded, then you just have to hit edit up here and it gives us all these tools. And then down here where we have this little flower, that's our stamping tool, and so that creates this outline around our design. And what we need to do is create an outline around each of the two pieces that we're using. At the bottom of your screen, you have a group, and if you group these, it doesn't work the way we need it to be. So if you've grouped them, you want to make sure that they're ungrouped. And then we're going to create that stamp of each of the two pieces we're working with individually. So we hit the little flower. And then here on the side, you have your distance. And so it can be right up against your design, or you can actually increase it and it gives it a little bit of a gap around them. I'm going to increase it just a little bit so that it's not in the middle of those lines, since the dream is really thin. And then we're going to hit memory. And notice that it's telling us now that we can find that stamp pattern over in IQ. So we'll have to go over to IQ in a minute to do the rest of our editing. But first, what we need to do is get the star and make a stamp of the star as well. For our design, what I'm going to do is actually stitch the tail over the background quilting, but for our stamp, we're going to have to go ahead and add it, and when we get over to IQ Designer, I can actually erase off that piece of it in that setting. So now we need to go over to IQ Designer to actually create the background fill that we need. So we're going to go to Home. And then it's going to say, is it okay to cancel the current pattern selection? You're going to say yes, but before you say okay, make sure that you've saved this to the memory. And if you don't know how to do that piece, down here in the right hand corner is memory. And you can either save it to your embroidery machine, or you can save it to a USB drive that you have plugged in. Okay, so then we're going to go Home, and now it's okay to cancel since we have that memorized, and over to IQ Designer. So again, we start with this blank slate. So the first thing that we need to do is create that 7-inch square that is the boundary of our mug rug first. So again, we're going to change our line type because every time we enter IQ Designer, its default is a satin stitch. So we're going to change that to a single stitch this time, since it's quilting. Turn it purple. Okay. Grab our stamp tool, get our square again. And then remember, the first thing that we have to do every time is resize to what we need it to be. So there's our 7-inch square that we created for our outline of our mug rug. And then now we can go back to stamp and bring in the two that we created for the Dream Big and the star. So there's that flower that we saw before over in embroidery. And then there's the stamps that we created. And so we have our Dream Big and our star. So let's put our Dream Big in. It goes to where it was on the screen. So you don't have to do any moving or re-relation to it. It's going to line up where it needs to be. And then we can also come in here and grab the star. So back to our flower. And there's the star stamp that we made as well. So then now what I want to do is on my star, I don't want it to have this boundary around where the tail of the star is. So I'm going to come in here with the eraser and actually erase out that piece. And that's where the stylus comes in really nicely, because it's easier to do those little bitty pieces. If you mess up like I did, I hit the eye, just hit the backspace. You can come in here and zoom in a little bit too. Still did it. Now we have the border around the Dream Big and the star, and we don't see that here in the middle. So now we're able to create the background quilting that we need. For this piece, these top pieces are all about the lines that we're creating, and this next set of 4 buttons here is all about filling in spaces. So we're going to go to the properties, which looks like the little piece of paper, and we can leave it red for now. And then here, if you hit this button that has the little bubbles, you can see this screen shows up and we can select. These are all the built-in designs that we can use as background fills that will go around the pieces that we've already stitched. So all of these are already built in. And then if you want to use the pieces from the design suite, that's under custom. So you need to make sure that you plug in your thumb drive that has the designs that you want on it. And then after the thumb drive is connected, then you can go to custom and then pull up the pocket. And then in here is where all of the designs are from that particular design suite. And so those are the additional designs that we could use for this particular pattern from that set. For our mug rug, we will use one of the built-in files. And I'm going to use this one over here. And so now we can see that I have my color selected. I like to choose different colors for each step. That one makes the needle stop between each of the different steps and allows me to make sure that I have the fabric where I want it, or it's doing what I need it to do. So whether or not I want it to be red, it doesn't really matter. Just having a different color allows the machine to stop between the different steps. What people often forget here is that instead of using the paintbrush, we need the paint bucket. If you use the brush, it just puts it in those spaces where you rub. And what we want to do is actually fill in the entire space. So we can back off of that, change to the bucket, and then touch where we want the fill to be. That way it's going to quilt around my pieces without going through them. And that's all we'll need for this particular piece in IQ Designer. So now we're ready to hit next. On this screen, you can see that we can adjust the size and the angle of the design. The third button here also creates the boundary around my letters, so I actually want to turn that on. So there's my outline. Depending on your design, you may want that on or off, but I like that it creates this little stitch around all of our pieces. For the size, I can come up here and maybe take it down to maybe 75% since we're a little bit smaller, and then it'll recalculate what that looks like for us. And you can see it's a little bit tighter with the design. So once we're satisfied with the way it looks, then we set. And then notice here it's saying, okay, if we go past the screen, you can't do any more editing. So you have to be ready to stitch out your design and be pleased with the way it looks before you hit OK. And now you can see that it brought it over from IQ Designer, and now I'm over in embroidery, and we're actually ready to stitch out what we've created. So now that we have everything set the way that we want it to be, we can hit embroidery. And then now we're actually ready to stitch out the background quilting. So you can see that the background quilting really does add a lot to the design, and I really like how the IQ Designer allows us to keep it out of our big design and making it look clean and professional. So let's go in and finish off the tail to the star, and then I'll show you how to put the back on a mug rug. So here's that background quilting, and we can hit return to go back to the editing screen. And at the bottom, we can add back in the design that fits into this background quilting. So there we have the three pieces that we are working on. What's neat in the Baby Lock Solaris Vision is that we can go in and tell it not to stitch certain pieces, and then that keeps us focused on what we need to finish. So under Edit, you have No Stitch. So we can turn that piece off for our square. And then we can come in here for the dream. And turn those off. Let's see here. Just going to turn everything off in the big dream. And then for our star, let's look at the pieces. So I already have, there's a little bit of yellow that's on this piece of it, so I want to make sure and catch that. And the same thing on the inner star as well. So we'll leave everything here on the star complete, and we'll go and stitch out just the tail. So we need to move over to embroidery. I'm going to load my yellow thread. And then what we need to watch on this piece is that it's going to do a little bit of yellow here and then move to the star, and we just need to be ready to stop it when it gets to the star. So as soon as it made that cutting sound, that's when I hit the stop button so that it wouldn't stitch over here on the star itself. So then now I can arrow down with my plus minus needle and go past the yellow star. And then here's where we picked up the inner part of our star, and then we have our tail. So what we need to do is move it past the inner star and then let it finish out the tail. So on this one, what we need to do is just use our arrows by the hundreds to get past that inner piece. So you're really just trying to figure out where it starts that next piece. And those of you that have done embroidery for a long time, this is the only buttons that we ever had, and now we can jump entire sections, which makes this so much easier. So now we'll do the little bit of teal that's in the tail there. Now we're ready to stitch out the black outline. So now that our mug rug has finished stitching, we have one last step, and that's to add the back fabric so that we can finish it off. So we're going to need to return on our screen and then get the design so that we can put that last step on. And there you can see how our design has finished and how background quilting really adds to any design that we want to use. It's just that nice touch that our Baby Lock Solaris Vision and the Meridian and the Altair 2 will also do background quilting using the IQ technology. So now that our design has finished stitching, I want to go back and turn on that outside line so that we can add our backing fabric. So now that we have that background stitch on, we're going to move over to embroidery and stitch that last step. Using our plus minus button, I want to move to just that outside line. So for the mug rug that I designed, it was a 7-inch square. And so what I've done is taken 2 pieces of fabric that are about 9 inches tall and then about 14 inches wide. We fold it in half so we have a nice folded edge, and you actually need 2 of those because what we're going to do is create a pocket here on the back side of the design that we can turn through, and then that allows us to stitch all of the way around the outside so we have a finished project. So we're just going to take one of our pieces and lay it over our design, making sure that we hang over the top and the bottom and the side by at least 1 inch. And then the other one the same way. We're just lining it up, and you want to make sure that your pieces are kind of straight here vertically so that when you put it together you have that nice seam. But you do want them to overlap quite a bit so that you have that finished project. The other thing that we like to add is some of our paper tape, and we'll use that just right here where these 2 fabrics overlap. It's quite terrifying when the needle pulls this fabric back and it gets all stuck together. So if you put paper tape over that edge, it sews right over it and the paper tape will tear off when we're finished. Put it at the top and the bottom. Okay, after you have that taped down really well, then we're ready to stitch that last box. A trick for doing this that a lot of people don't realize is that if you hold down the start button, the machine will take 1 stitch at a time very slowly, and that way you're able to make sure that it's not going to get caught on that little spot. So I'll hold it down until it goes over it, and then I'll release it and let it finish. So you can see it tried to take it a little bit, so I was able to stop and then tuck underneath it and then hold it down again. Slow stitches, and as soon as I release it, it'll go faster. Now we have a finished project. We're ready to take it over to the cutting table, trim and flip our mug rug so that it's completely finished. Okay, all we need to do is trim off the edges of our excess fabric around our mug rug and remove our paper tape. When you do this, you want to make sure that you leave about a 1/2 inch around the outside. If you cut it too short, it tends to pull the stitches and you can see where you've sewn. You also want to make sure that you dog ear your corners because they'll look nicer as well. You just want to make sure that you don't cut through the stitch line. So after I got all of my corners turned, I would probably take it over to my ironing board and press it really nicely. The other thing you can do is go around and top stitch this closed, and it kind of helps hold this down as well, but it's not necessary. And so just like that, we have created a mug rug using the IQ technology built into our machines. And just like that, we have created this fun little mug rug using our IQ technology and our Baby Lock embroidery machines. I love the feature, and it just gives us that extra bit of creativity that we all love. If you liked what you saw today, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. And if you want to receive those notifications, make sure you click on the bell icon. Thanks for letting us turn your inspiration into creation.